Today we're going to talk about how to make your business succeed. One of the first things is knowing your market. When I say know your market, I mean you need to know if there's even room for whatever service you're planning on providing, or if it's a retail establishment, you need to know if there's room for you. A good example of that would be if I wanted to start a sub shop, and there's already a Subway in my town, and there's a Quiznos in my town, and there's a Jimmy John's in my town. I'm probably going to have a pretty hard time making my business work unless I'm in a major city like Chicago or someplace just massive like that, right? So if you're in a small town like mine, if there's already 2-3 of them, odds are it's not a good fit for me. I remember when Little Caesars, my wife and I were talking about having a Little Caesars franchise and buying into that, and we weren't sure if it would work. Well, that is a huge, they came to my town and they do a ton of business. So they're in my town. I snoozed, I loosed, I don't know if that even made sense, but when you snooze, you lose. There, I know that makes sense. So anyway, know your market first off. Secondly, it falls into the same thing almost of knowing your competition. So I'll give you another example. So I opened up a retail store in my town, and there was one store that was competition for me. Now, that store was in downtown Antigo, and it was a very small space they were in. And I thought, well, how could I come in there and compete with them? Well, it turns out I put them out of business in 2 months. And I didn't do that intentionally. All I did was I came in and I put up a big store, and I had a lot more to offer, and I did really good marketing for it. And in 2 months they were done. They closed their doors. And again, that wasn't my intention. That's just the way it happened. But knowing your competition is a big deal. All right, if there's towns that I went to branch out with different stores, like one example is like a vape store, and I went into another town and I looked at the competition in that town, and there were like 5 of them there already, and the one in the area we were going to go in was just massive. And I'm like, I do not want to go head to head with them, because if I do, it's just going to be a price war. I'm going to have to bring down my prices to compete with him. Then he'll bring down his prices. Then I'll bring down my prices. And it just gets to be an ugly war. And at the end of the day, neither one of you make money. Now, if he hadn't been there on that section of town, that town is big enough. We could have done fine over there. But he did what I was going to do. He just beat me to the punch. So anyway, next thing is develop a good marketing strategy for once you've decided you are going to have your business and you get going in it, or you start to get going, whether it's retail or it's a service industry, whatever it is, you have to be able to market. So you've got to learn marketing. If you don't know marketing, there's no reason not to know it today. You don't have to go to school for it like you had 2 years ago. I mean, there's so much on YouTube that you can learn from people that talk about marketing. You can go on the internet. There's books you can get at. There's all kinds of things that you can get. I personally learn better from video. Some people learn better from books. But at the end of the day, as long as you're learning, that's what matters. If you don't know marketing, you need to know marketing. You could have 2 companies that come in here. Stores look identical, but if this guy knows marketing and this guy doesn't, he's going to market the crap out of the business. He's going to grow exponentially while you fail, because he's going to be taking your sales. So in order for him, there's only so many pieces of the pie, and in order for him to grow, he's going to need the pieces of that pie, and he's going to take them from you, okay? So you need to know marketing so that you can stay on top of him, okay, if that makes sense to you. All right, moving on. Hire good people. And I know in this day and age, everybody's screaming, where are the good people, where are the good people? Well, as far as I'm concerned, the baby boomers are the good people. I'll say it over and over again. Those people learned how to work, and they're not afraid to work. They work hard, and they're good people. If you can get your hands on a baby boomer, grab them. And that's not to say they're the only ones out there. There's other people that work hard too. So you just have to find the right people for your business, and you got to look everywhere. And there's no crystal ball that's going to show you where the right people are. A temp service maybe isn't going to provide the right person for you. For me, personally, I just had to go out and just get a series of people in, try them out, and I get them from all different areas, and we just try these people out, and then whoever sticks, treat them like gold and try to keep them. Okay? All right, that being said, you got to know your numbers. So an example, there's someone that just told me recently about a business that was doing like $2 million. And I thought to myself, Okay, well, that's great. They're doing $2 million, but what does that really mean? It doesn't mean anything to me, because I know there's businesses out there that could do that kind of money, and their net profit, what they're taking home, is way low. It could be 30,000, 50,000, 60,000, whatever. And so that doesn't make that a great business. Now you come to me doing $2 million in a business, and you tell me that they bring home 200,000 a year. Now you have my attention. So things like that. So I'm just saying, you need to know your numbers. You need to know your margins. You can't open up a pencil company and know that when you buy the pencils for 10 cents a piece and you plan on selling them for 15 cents a piece, that you're going to make a killing, because you're not going to make a killing. By the time you pay for all your overhead, your lights, your heat, your rent, whatever else that comes into play there, your products, your people, so on and so forth, at the end of the day, you maybe don't make anything. That's why it's important for you to know your numbers. You need to know, hey, I can pick these pencils up for a penny a piece, and I can sell them for 15 cents. That's huge markup. That'll help you a lot as far as getting into that business. The other thing you want to look at is, what is the demand? Because I watched a candle business open up in my town, a retail candle shop, and it opened up and it was done in a year. And it was a beautiful place. Everything smelled good. There were all these scented candles and all that stuff. Well, that was her passion. She would make these candles, so she was making them very inexpensively. But the problem was, how many people in that town come in there and buy those scented candles? Well, obviously not enough, because she closed up. All right. And when I talked to a person that was involved with that shop, and they're just like, yeah, the demand wasn't there. We just, had 1 or 2 people a day came in, and half the time they didn't buy anything. So you got to know that there's a market, that there's a demand for whatever it is you're going to do. If there's no demand, there's no business. You could have the best business in the world. It looks beautiful and it's attractive, and you market the hell out of it. But if no one cares and no one wants that business, they don't want the product you're selling, then it isn't going to matter. It's all for nothing. All right? All right, so now another example, and I want to throw this one at the lawn care guys out there, because this is a huge thing. When I talk about knowing your numbers, you have to know that when you're mowing lawns, and if you're not making enough money at the end of the day, and after you pay your employees, there's not a lot of money left in the pot, you better do something. You better either tighten up all your hatches everywhere. You better get lean and mean and trim labor wherever you can, and tighten up the routes, create more density, do whatever you can, and raise your prices, you guys. Do not be afraid to raise your prices. Raise them. If you do quality work for people, it's not going to matter that much. Raise your prices. If they do balk about it and they leave you, they're low ballers to begin with, and you don't even want them. All right? So, moving past that. Let's talk a little bit about I'm going to tell you about the Florida thing. And when we talk about this, when I'm talking about the marketing, and there's levels of making money and not making money. And I remember when I was in Florida, we were doing door hangers, and just door hangers. That was my whole means of getting the marketing material out there for people. And this comes into play with knowing your numbers. It was cheap for me to buy these things and to get them out, because I was using my employees to help me get them out. Well, then at the end of the year, we just weren't making any money. We were ready to sell the business, and I told my wife, I said, hey, we got to do something different. And this is back when the internet first came out, and I heard about people talking about it, and I'm like, why don't we just try it? Well, it was a game changer for us. We put that up, and we just gained customers exponentially, just through the roof, right? And that worked really well. Then it was a matter of creating density on the streets, so that if you pick one up on that street, you're working the tar out of that, and you're to get more and more and more on that street, so you make more money. And that stuff comes into play with knowing your numbers too, because if you have to, for lawn care guys, if you have to drive all the way across town for one job, and you're only making $20 on that job, well, by the time you drive there and come back, I mean, you gotta remember, it's not about the numbers. It doesn't matter how many you have. You could have 300 or 3,000. It doesn't matter. The guy that's doing 30 could be making more money than you. All right, so it comes back to that same story. We do $2 million here. Well, do you? Well, how much do you actually bring home? All right, so pay attention to that. Anyway, talk a little bit about your spending. It's going to be important for you to watch your spending. People have an inherent problem with spending money that they make. And what I mean by that is generally what happens is the more money you make, the more money you spend. It just happens. I don't know why it happens. I guess because maybe you could never afford those things before, so then you go ahead and you buy them. Whenever you're looking at a business, at tax time I run into this. I look at like, okay, I have to pay a boatload of money in on taxes, right? Because my government is so frickin' wonderful to me. So I'm like, all right, I either do that or invest in something else, right? I need more equipment. So I may not even need more equipment, but I'm going to invest in more equipment just so that my government doesn't get their hands on that money, because once they get that money, it's gone forever, right? But I want to be smart about it. So what do? I stick it into more marketing and stuff like that to create more business, okay? And you still make more money, and I know it's a vicious cycle. It keeps going because the government's hand is always out there, you know? But you do the best you can with what you have, all right? Save the money you make. Don't be frivolous. Don't spend it foolishly. All right. All right, next thing, let's see. Don't get too big too fast. I know a guy, I told a story about him before, but he was a big landscape guy. He was a young guy. He started making really good money in it. He went and bought all new dump trucks, all new excavators and loaders, you know, backhoes, all this stuff. He got so big so fast, he couldn't keep up with the work. He put a ton of money into advertising. He brought on a bunch of work, and then he was losing employees left and right, so he couldn't get the work done. So then people were canceling their contracts, and then all of a sudden he didn't have any work. And then the bank is still knocking on the door, hey, I need my money for those payments on all that stuff. And so he had to have an auction, sold the whole thing. So don't get too big too fast. All right, what a problem to have, right? Anyway, it does happen though. So we talk about that. We talk about the employee theft. I tell you all the time to watch for employee theft. I was a loss control manager for Kmart for 13 years, so I see all kinds of theft, from shoplifting to employees that are just, employees will hit you hardest because they know your weak spots. They know where they can embezzle money, where they can get away with things. Believe it or not, time theft is huge, absolutely huge. If you pay guys for an 8-hour day or a 10-hour day, and they spend an hour and a half at lunch, and they spend a half an hour on break, and they do that 5 times a day, before you know it, you paid them for 6 hours, or you paid them for 10 and they work 6. Now do that every day, do that 5 days a week, and then times that by all the employees that you have. See how much money you're actually losing, okay? You need to have your foreman, your people, on top of your people. Your management staff needs to be controlling that. It's like, you guys better be doing something, all right? I'm paying you well, you need to be out there. Don't allow all those big breaks and those long lunch hours and all those kind of things. I mean, time theft is huge, and it affects a business more than you think it does. All right? At the end of the week, when you expected to get all this work done, but you only got this much done, well, that means the income you expected to make is back down here also. Okay? So, and the only ones happy about that are your employees, right? So, keep that in mind. My dogs are barking in the background, I know. Sorry about that. All right. Anyway, let's see. What else can we talk about here? All right, the fantastic customer service. Customer service. Huge deal. You want fantastic customer service. You hear it from everybody. There's a reason people preach this all the time. It's because you need it. You have to have it. Today, the customers will drop you at the drop of a hat. I had a guy, I remember, that I snowplowed for. I will never forget this. That guy, I had him for like 10 years. And he dropped me because someone came up to him and approached him and said that they would plow his yard for $5 less than me. I'm like, are you kidding? I had you for 10 years. We went out and had beers together. I mean, when these guys would come up from the city to their place, we'd go out and have beers together and stuff. And he didn't even approach me. He didn't even approach me and say, hey, George, this guy came in and, for $5 less, I just, can you match it? He didn't even do that. He was just like, well, he was cheaper. Idiotic, boneheaded move. There had to be more behind it than that, I would assume. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Today, customer service has got to be top notch because there's a lot of competition. It seems like no matter what you get into, there's competition, right? So you look at that and you say to yourself, okay, how am I going to do this? I got to be the best that I can. There's customers that I've gone to that were complaining about something that was totally wrong. That was something I had no control over, but it didn't matter. I went over there, make the matters right. There's another customer that we fought over, I think it was $5 or something. The guy just wouldn't pay. And it wasn't a big amount of money, But I created a stir, told him I was going to punch a hole through his head, and the next thing you know, he puts it on Facebook and he puts it on my Google reviews and all this stuff, and it's like, man, all that, if I'd have just sucked it up, worked it out with the guy to get my money. I tried to get my money. He was just being a jackass about it. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. I got to move past that. All right, so having said that, find good people. We talked about that a little bit, but I'm telling you guys, you got to find good quality people. Just keep looking till you find them, okay? Focus on what matters. What matters in your business is making money. I don't go to work every day just for my health, okay? Because that goes against my health, because you have headaches and you have stress and all this other crap, right? I go to work to make money. That's what I'm there for. And you've got to stay focused on making money. You don't want to let yourself get astray, and it's easy to do with all the distractions that come along. There's so many things that come along to distract you. The phone is ringing for this. We have call blocker on our phones, and that doesn't even work. We're constantly being bombarded with calls. And if anybody knows of anything that's really good that gets rid of those unwanted calls, by all means, leave in the comments below. I'd appreciate knowing about it. And then, so you have that. You have salesmen knocking on your doors. You have people that always want a piece of you, and they're either trying to sell you something or they want something of yours for free or whatever it is. But you've got to find a way to get that tunnel vision. When you go to work, you need to be uninterrupted so you can get your job done. I don't care if it's hiring people to take some of the work off of you so that you can do your job, but it's valuable that you focus on what you're there to do. There's been so many days that I've come into work with the intention of doing, 10 videos. I'm going to do 10 videos today. I'm lucky if I get one done some days because there's so many interruptions. And it's hard to stay focused. But then I'll say that night when I go back home, I'll look at that and say, God, I look at these things and I'm like, I'm not getting ahead. Now tomorrow I've got to work on my business, okay? And then you go into your business and you work on it and you got another 30 interruptions, and you have a hard time staying focused on that. So what I've had to do is get other people to help me. They take those distractions and get them away from me. And you don't want to do it. I've told my own kids sometimes, it's like, look, when I'm at work, I'm working hard here to try to make this work. Can you give me a call after work? Things like that, whatever it takes. And the kids aren't even the issue, really. I mean, it's the million distractions you get outside of work, All right, that being said, you're going to want to sacrifice now. Now's the time to sacrifice. When you're growing your business, when all your friends are taking their money and they're blowing it in the bars and they're screwing around with it, you sacrifice. You sacrifice today, it'll pay off big for you tomorrow. Save your money. Don't blow your money. And you want to just take that money and just keep reinvesting it into your business, okay? I would much rather invest in myself over and over and over again than I would buying another guy's company, buying his headaches, things of that nature. I know me, and I would rather invest in myself than even like a stock market. You throw it in the stock market, you never know what those guys are doing with your money. You have no idea, and you don't have any control over it. I do have control over what goes on in my life, and to a certain extent, I can control it. And if I see things going poorly, I can change things, okay? So it's important to know that. All right, work harder and work smarter. Here's what I mean by that. Work harder than your competition. Work smarter than your competition. Your competition, if they're any good at all, they're out there right now trying to think of ways to beat you. They're trying to think of ways to take your customers over to their side. Okay? You need to be doing the same thing, only better. So how do you do that? You work harder and you work smarter. You find better ways to market. You find better ways to take care of your customers so you don't lose any. Get the retention rate down to 0 or close to it. That's your starting point. And then from there, how do I build more and more and more and more? Get the foundation set and then work up from that. All right? All right. Answer your phone. Oh my God, I can't even tell you how important it is to answer your phone. Here's a great example. I can remember so many different instances of this where we didn't answer our phone. One particular one comes up that I went to help my lawn care guys one day because they were behind and we were doing this big job. I went to help them. I put my phone in the truck. I was in the truck for like an hour and a half, and I had umpteen calls. And when I went back, I got my phone and I tried to call them all back, and most of them had already found someone else by then. I'm like, God dang it. Number one, you stick a lot of money into advertising and marketing. You do research. You do a lot of research first. So it's a lot of your time and a lot of invested time from you in this, a lot of sacrifice. Then it's your money, and your money is spent on door hangers or whatever marketing you're doing, and you do all that to make the phone ring. For you to not answer that phone after you've done all of that means you're an absolute fool. You will continue to throw your money away over and over and over again until you fix that problem. You need to solve that problem immediately. You need to anticipate that problem. So, for example, if you're a solo guy and you're working in the truck or wherever you're doing, and you're out there and you leave your phone in the vehicle while you're working at that customer's house, who's getting that call that comes in? Because if I need a plumber, an electrician, whatever, and I call you because of your marketing, that's how I know about you, all the money you spent to get to me, and now I'm calling you, you don't answer your phone, guess what I'm doing? I'm calling the next guy. And I'm not going to stop doing that. I'm going to continue to do that. And that's what you guys need to do, answer the phone. All right, can't stress that enough. All right, let's see. The service industry, Johnny on the spot, same thing. That call comes in for a landscape estimate or whatever it is. If you're in the service industry, you better get there as fast as you can. Very, very important. I run into this in the landscaping industry all the time. When I tell them I'm 2 months behind, they click, the phone's hung up, they call somebody else. They don't want to wait. People want things done right now. Johnny on the spot. Well, that needs to be you. So you get there as fast as you can. A lot of times we quote people right over the phone for like mowing jobs. We'll quote them over the phone for pest control with the mosquito police. And we save so much time and energy doing that, and we get so many customers by being Johnny on the spot. They love that. Focus on that. It'll help your service-based industry if you can do that. All right, next thing. That customer service, I don't want to sit here and preach about it all day long. Just do it. Just bend over backwards, kiss a little bit of that ass, because that's how you build your business. I don't care if they're wrong, try and work through it. You're better off to work through it today than they leave a bad Google review for you, and all of a sudden 10 people that might have called you read that review and they don't call you at all. So that one person could cost a lot of money. So